Thanks for watching Rachel and Ralph's Reality Check, where us longtime political insiders give you the inside scoop on what's really going on, and nobody's paying us to say whatever they want us to say.
Which is terrible. I wish they would, but they don't. And
Don't
so
tell people that. Don't admit that. Then they probably will hire us, and then we won't be able to have this cool show anymore.
I know, but at least we would get paid to not have this cool show. But unfortunately, we are stuck by pure poverty to be telling the truth to the candid world. We are announcing the facts to the candid world. And by the way, just so our listeners understand, or even you, Rachel, understand, the fact is that the political class has been trying like crazy to placate the voters by telling them what they want to hear. So when they hear all of these, quote, fake news things coming out of Washington, it's like, of course they do, because they're demanding fake news. So if our viewers would only tune into us by the millions and demand real news, we're happy to deliver it in spades because we know the real deal. But most of our listeners really want fake news. And so, they will go off and listen to Alex Jones or CNN or one of the other fake news purveyors that is more to their taste than we are, but we have the real deal.
All right. And the more people watch us, the more they can see, because we are not censored. And so today we're going to discuss an article I had that just came out today, breaking news about an attorney who was targeted by the Arizona State Bar, Jeff Moffitt. I've known this man for several years, since they went after him and disbarred him in 2016. Now they are trying to prosecute him. And then we'll move on to Ralph's piece that just came out about 9/11 and what Ralph thinks 9/11 was really about. So to begin, one thing I've written about over the years is how state bars target conservative attorneys. And the reason they do this is because the left controls most of the state bars, which basically operate as unions, illegal, which a lot of us believe are illegal in right-to-work states. And for whatever reason, people on the left like to get involved in state bars and control them. And I have a theory that it's because a lot of conservatives, we have families, we have church, we're more likely to be engaged in those kind of activities in our free time. So the left has free time, they choose to get involved in the bar. And so they begin coming after conservatives.
Hold on a second, Rachel. Let's give the devil her due, okay? And the fact is, it has nothing to do with church, it has nothing to do with families, okay? Conservatives are lazy. Okay, whereas
no. They just came out with a study that showed that people in red states work harder than people in blue states.
Okay, fine, but I'm just saying that the progressives, meaning the totalitarians, okay, have studied the works of a well-known to the left, little known to the right, thinker called Antonio Gramsci, who was the head of the Italian Communist Party and spent most of his short life in jail, God bless him, for fighting the fascists, and the literal fascists, not the Antifa, the real fascist party that controlled Italy. And he as a communist was truly anti-fascist. And in his short life, he wrote things called prison notebooks. And Gramsci said, and this has had a huge impact on the strategy and the tactics of the left, but the right is not woke to Gramsci and really should be for the benefit of the United States of America, that we communists, or in our case, we conservatives, we're too weak to control the government, okay? But we're strong enough to control the PTA. We're strong enough to control the church vestry. We're strong enough to control the Rotary Club. And so the left decided, and we're strong enough to control the State Bar Association. So if we actually mobilize and activate and join and participate and eventually run for offices and take control of these local groups, then we can we can grab a lot of power from these little groups. And we're not presenting ourselves as communists because that's, they're bloodthirsty tyrants. So their brand is terrible. So they take over the State Bar Association without identifying themselves as communists or socialists or progressives or totalitarians or whatever it happens to be. And then they advance their agenda using that brand. And the tragedy here, Rachel, is this is so easy to do. Rudolph Dench called this the long march through the institutions. And if only conservatives would wake up, there are twice as many of us as there are totalitarian progressives. And we could easily take over the labor unions, the churches, the bar associations and whatever, and we could use it to reinforce our vision of classical liberal republicanism, capitalism, and Judeo-Christianity, which is, of course, what was the doctrine, the cultural hegemony, to quote Gramsci, on which America was founded and made America a great humanitarian leader of all the nations. So if I could just say where this is coming from, it's all coming from Gramsci. You should read him.
Okay, well, I got to push back on you, Ralph. You're an attorney just like I am, and I would point out that I've had friends who have tried to run for the State Board of Governors here on the Arizona bar. And what happens is the left controls all the biggest law firms in Arizona, and they tell their minions, their lying attorneys, how to vote. And so it's almost impossible for a conservative to get involved with the bar and control it. So it's harder than it sounds. And so what's happened is
You're absolutely right, Rachel. It's hard, okay? It's hard, but I don't want you to characterize it as impossible. My great godfather, Sun Yat-sen, had to generate, I can't remember whether it was 11, shame on me, 11 or 13 uprisings before he overthrew the Qing dynasty in China. Okay, I was adopted as the honorary brother of the daughters of the godson of Sun Yat-sen. So I consider Dr. Sun to be the first president of Republican China, by the way, to be my honorary great godfather. So it's hard, but that doesn't exonerate us from doing the hard work. If Sun Yat-sen could overthrow the whole darn Qing dynasty, we can certainly occupy a lousy little state bar association. So don't discourage people.
I'm not. I'm just letting you know we have already put in hundreds of hours trying to make changes at the Arizona State Bar, and we've gotten nowhere. And so basically what happened to this poor guy, Jeff Moffitt, is he doesn't even live in Arizona. He has nothing to do with Arizona other than he happened to pass the bar here. So he's a member of the bar here, and he had a couple cases here years ago. That's it. And so he has an incident with a woman from New Mexico. He lives in California. And so this woman files a complaint against him, and the New Mexico bar just blew it off. The California bar just blew it off. But the Arizona State Bar, which has a reputation for going after conservatives, we all know what they did to me several years ago. The Arizona bar and this disciplinary judge, who we all believe is very crooked, William O'Neill, they went after him and they disbarred him. And what they disbarred him for was an offense that he told a woman over Facebook, yeah, if you want me to give you legal services and you don't have any money, just send me a photo, and implied like he wanted a new photo. That's what he did. Now, if that is considered a crime, soliciting prostitution, that's a misdemeanor here in Arizona. And the statute of limitations for that is a year, right? So the woman should have complained to criminal authorities, and they would have had to have prosecuted him within a year. She didn't. She complained to the bar over a year afterwards, okay? And she basically tried to extort him, and he's trying to get a hold of the evidence showing that. So the Arizona bar disbars him, and so all these other reciprocal bars, start doing it too. Like, he was licensed to practice law in front of the Social Security Administration. So they start to disbar him, and it's it's like piling on. If one jurisdiction does it, the other ones will too. Meanwhile, he was practicing in front of the Social Security Administration, not in an attorney capacity. He was representing clients, helping them get disability. You don't need to be an attorney to do that. So he is fighting the disbarment with the Arizona State Bar, with the Arizona States, with the Arizona Supreme Court. He's got 4 federal lawsuits going, and including, fighting the disbarment by the Social Security Administration, litigating with them for several years since 2016. And then all of a sudden last week, the feds show up and arrest him and say that he has committed wire fraud and dishonest representation by not telling the Social Security Administration that he was disbarred. Well, okay, let's see. He's been in litigation with the Social Security Administration for years now over being disbarred by them. How is he, honestly, how is he not disclosed? Why are they litigating with him for several years over this exact fact, and then they decide to go make it criminal? It doesn't even make sense. And then we all know about wire fraud. Wire fraud is the criminal charge they use when they can't get a real crime on you. It just means you happen to use the phone, the email, some kind of communication when you were conducting a real crime. So this is where this poor guy is at. And what terrifies me about it is we are now letting the left weaponize state bars into actually prosecuting people. And you know where this is going. They're going to start doing it to all of Trump's attorneys, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani. I've just been waiting for them to not only disbar them, but also criminally prosecute them.
Well, Rachel, once again, you have managed to scoop the establishment media at your wonderful town hall column. And I encourage our thousands, millions, maybe billions of viewers to go to townhall.com, Rachel Alexander, and to read your stuff, because really you're way ahead of the pack as usual. And so good on you. You also kind of bring to my mind the great novelist Ethel Lena White in her famous or long forgotten, actually, novel called The Wheel Spins, who stated lost causes are the only ones worth fighting for. So
You're so cheerful, Ralph. And you're so positive.
Yes, I know. So I love you seeing. I love you seeing going after another lost cause, but this is a cause that you're attempting to establish, justice, and you're attempting to prevent the railroading of some poor innocent by these mysterious forces of the universe.
I never said he was innocent, but if you look at what the state bars do to penalize people who do similar behavior to him, there are these horrible examples, and I document them in my column in the one I wrote before, which I linked to, where these judges let their buddies off the hook for doing all kinds of horrible sexual things with clients. He didn't do anything other than suggest to the woman, well, you could maybe send me a photo, and implied that it was a nude photo. That was it. The woman never even hired him. He never performed any legal services for her. She never sent him a nude photo. Nothing ever happened, and he gets disbarred, and all these other people just get a slap on the wrist. They went after him because he was running for Congress as a Republican, and his wife was running for state legislature as a Republican.
This reminds me of the crime of driving while black. So running while Republican should become, thanks to you, a whole new meme in terms of what the progressive totalitarians are attempting to criminalize. So good on you.
But if you're a conservative black too, you don't get any, free pass there at all. His wife, who was running for state legislature, is a conservative black woman. They don't care. I always say they go after blacks, conservative blacks, harder than they go after conservative white people.
I know it's I admire them. They are ruthless. They are relentless. And they are out to win. I wish we were too.
All right, well, shall we move on to your column on your theory about 9/11?
Well, it's not a theory, it's a revealed truth. And that is unfortunately, the not Atne Ute Itbre former president George W. Bush, Bush 43, deemed the aftermath of 9/11 the war on terror, and he accused Iraq of having weapons of mass destruction, which it turned out they did not have. It was just a bunch of hype. And then he, went and had American lives, American troops invade Iraq and invade Afghanistan, causing thousands of American casualties and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of local Iraqi and Afghanistani casualties. And he squandered trillions of dollars on this episode of invasion, which actually makes your buddy Joe Biden look kind of frugal for a mere $3.5 trillion for a bunch of nannies and nanny state kind of stuff. That was George W. Bush, and he was a Republican, and I'm embarrassed, maybe even ashamed. The point here being is that the 9/11, the attack on the World Trade Center, the attack on the Pentagon, and the heroically foiled attack on the Capitol, was a political action. It was designed to knock America back, to allow the far enemy, is what Al-Qaeda considered us, to create the space for them to unite the various different formerly colonial, now autonomous Arab states, which had been colonized by England, not by us, and carved up into a bunch of different little countries. To unite all of these countries, the oil wealth of the Saudis and the Emirates and Qatar and so forth, with the brains of Damascus and Cairo, because the Arabs, they're geniuses historically. They invented algebra. I flunked algebra, which means they're a lot smarter than me. So by attempting to create an Islamic superstate, by knocking back the United States with this suicidal attack on the World Trade Center, on the Pentagon, and these foiled attack on the Capitol, the perpetrators of this vicious attack were really attempting to recreate the caliphate. And the caliphate meant the Ottoman Empire. Caliphate was the precursor to the Ottoman Empire. So I hate to give away just how old I really am, Rachel, because you already think
your white hair already does.
You already suspect that I'm a geezer, and this will just prove it. When my father was born in 1910, 83% of the world was governed by an emperor. And by the time he was bar mitzvahed, if he was bar mitzvahed, family law doesn't speak one way or the other. In 1923, 4 of the top 5 empires had been toppled. The Qing dynasty, the Qing Empire had been toppled in China. The Romanov Empire had been toppled in Russia. The Austro-Hungarian Empire had been toppled in Austria-Hungary. And the Ottoman Empire, the great Islamic empire, had been toppled and replaced by a secular republic. The 5th great empire was the British Empire, which had started its terminal decline. And we, the United States, being anti-imperialistic, Noam Chomsky to the contrary, had basically, after World War II, crushed the British Empire. We entered World War II for 2 reasons: to beat the Nazis and the Axis powers, but also to deconstruct the British Empire, which we considered to be an illegitimate rival of ours. And we did it. America has been anti-imperialistic forever. And since Thomas Jefferson, when he posited America as the leader of what he called the Empire of Liberty. And so
we didn't colonize Africa. The left always seems to forget that.
Right. No, that's exactly right. So 9/11 was a political blow by Al Qaeda and Daesh, who fancied itself the Islamic State, but that was ridiculous. No principled Muslims ever recognized them as a legitimate force, in order to knock America back and to try to create an Islamic superpower. Now, they failed in their major mission. There is no united Islamic caliphate. There is no united Islamic world that has brought the oil-rich countries together with the brain-rich countries like Egypt and Syria. And it's a mess. That said, it did shake America's confidence in its position as the world's champion for liberty. And so we did things here at home, like enacting the Totalitarian Patriot Act and other things that diluted our passionate commitment to liberty that goes back to the Declaration of Independence. And so what we've seen since America has lost its nerve in promoting liberty. And remember, Rachel, when my father was born in 1910, 83% of the world was ruled by emperors. And we entered World War I to make the world safer, representative democracy. We entered World War II to beat the Axis powers and replace the tyrants, Hitler, Mussolini, Tojo, Mao, with Republican governance. And we implanted, for the first time in history, liberal Republican governance. And by liberal, I mean, I don't mean progressive. The classical definition of liberal means that there are certain rights that are inalienable, and even government power cannot take them away, like our Second Amendment rights, or right to free speech, or free exercise of religion. Okay, Jefferson, when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, had a very clear vision that these were inalienable rights, that the government was constituted to protect these rights, not to infringe these rights. So it was amazing and beautiful. America started as this little ragtag collection of 13 colonies. And as over the years, we grow bigger and stronger. We became the major force in the world for the projection of classical liberal republicanism, implanting it in Western Europe and in Japan, and even dissolving the USSR, freeing the captive nations that were called the satellites, and softening the totalitarianism in China, which is now coming back since America has lost its nerve. But China under Mao was a brutally totalitarian state, and under Deng Xiaoping, it became a far more free country, an authoritarian, not a totalitarian country. That was America. America was until 2001, until 9/11, implanting the liberal republicanism, the empire of liberty, all over the world, and we were doing a fantastic job of it, even including South America. But when the Al Qaeda attacked us and Pearl Harbored us on our own soil, it rattled us, and we began to become more authoritarian and less a force for liberty. And that's been going on for 20 years, and it's not pretty.
Well, that's a great historical explanation. And I just have two questions for you. One, do you think that part of the reason Al Qaeda was unsuccessful forming this caliphate is because most Muslims around the world actually aren't these radical extremists that we've seen come out of, Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Excuse me. Radical is a beautiful word. Don't say radical extremists. Say dogmatic extremists.
I can't keep, track of what the current lingo is supposed to be. It keeps.
It's not the current lingo. It's my lingo. Remember, I love Solvinsky's rules for and his rules for radicals. Okay, so don't use radical as a bad word. Okay, you can talk
I
about
literally
fanatical.
cannot keep track. And then I work with Associated Press articles during the day, and the way their lingo keeps changing and how you describe terrorists, I flounder. But I wanted to know if you think that's true. And then my other question for you is, what would you have recommended the U.S. do differently after 2011? I'm sorry, 2001, in terms of Iraq, Afghanistan, et cetera?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I leaned toward the invasion at the time. I was gulled by the claims of weapons of mass destruction, and I was kind of taken advantage of by Bush by tacitly supporting his incursion into the Middle East. In retrospect, boy, was I wrong, and I readily admit it. Me and Hillary Clinton in supporting that invasion were just, flat out being manipulated and used. And I'm embarrassed by it. Okay. We squandered trillions of dollars that we could have used much better at home in infrastructure and constructive projects. And thousands of our troops were injured, and tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of Iraqis and Afghanistanis were injured or killed in this incursion. I don't have to tell you, Rachel, how many empires have gone to dust in the quagmire of Afghanistan. We achieved no persistent good there. I believe that America should stick to its mission, its heroic and noble mission, to be the advocate, the paladin, the excuse me, the chief proponent of liberty, both at home and throughout the world. I'm not a libertarian. I'm a classical liberal, a small R Republican. Okay, but I think that
we can't stereotype you as a neocon.
I was never a neocon. Don't just because I'm a Jew, don't mix me up with Bill Kristol.
Okay. Baby boomer era.
Right, exactly.
And conservative.
I was never a neocon. I was always a supply sider and a paleocon. So I feel okay about that. But I remember sitting downtown in a cafe shortly after 9/11 downtown DC, and wondering whether they were going to, they had a dirty nuke that was going to, injure us. It was the first Pearl Harbor on American soil. We didn't know what was going on. And having been at war, whether it was World War I, World War II, or the Cold War, for a century, naturally we were on a hair trigger. And I'm sad that what we did was counterproductive to America's mission to spread liberty throughout the world. But I hope people will come to my Newsmax column, Ralph Benko, read my column about 9/11 as of today, July 13th, and then go read the Declaration of Independence if they haven't read it for a while, and recognize that our core mission statement in the Declaration is the promotion of liberty and the fight against tyranny. And
by the way, you said today's July 13th, but you meant September 13th. But I'm going to let you have the last word.
Don't tell me what I meant. I meant July 13th. No, of course you got me dead to rights. I meant September 13th. Thank you, Rachel.
I am letting you have that last word because I don't even want to get into debating our role in Afghanistan right now. It looks like it's going to look bad on Biden because he's the one withdrawing it at this point. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay, Biden and Trump, but yes, Trump was the one who turned over who negotiated the deal to turn over the Afghanistan back to the Taliban, and Trump was and Biden was the guy who fulfilled the deal that Donald Trump negotiated. So I understand why you don't want to wander into that.
We have already gotten into this on past shows. Trump only agreed to pull out at the scheduled timeline if the Taliban did not breach its part of the agreement. And the Taliban clearly did. I mean, we can go over the timeline if you want. I don't think Trump would have pulled all of our troops out the way that Biden did. But no, I do not want to argue this. If people want to see us debate this, they can go back and watch us debate it in previous shows.
Thank you, Rachel, for giving me the last word. It's been great to see you again. And I hope that our thousands and millions of viewers will get somewhat woke, both on the infiltration of American civic society, like the Bar Association, that you have scooped at Townhall, and that our viewers will go to Newsmax and learn what was really behind the story of 9/11.
Thank you, everybody, for watching us. Bye now.